My name is Claire. I'm 35, a single mom of two living in Boston, and this is the story of how I finally realized the people I thought were my family were nothing more than strangers wearing familiar faces, and how I found my revenge not through screaming or fighting, but through silence, truth, and cutting every tie they thought I would never cut. The story begins the night I ended up in the emergency room, doubled over from pain so sharp it felt like my body was tearing itself apart. The doctors said it was urgent, that I needed surgery right away. And as I lay in that cold bed with tubes and monitors hooked up to me, all I could think about were my kids, Noah, who was 10, and Lily, who was 6. Their father hadn't been around for years, so I reached for my phone and did the one thing I thought would be enough. I texted my family group chat. I didn't beg, didn't cry, just typed, "Please, I need someone to stay with the kids for a few days while I'm in the hospital." I figured that was all it would take, but I was wrong. The first reply wasn't words. It was a boomerang video from my sister Sophie spinning at a vineyard in a flowery dress. Glass of wine, raised like life was perfect. The caption read, "Weekend starts now." No mention of me, no follow-up, just a performance for social media while her own sister was being wheeled into surgery. My parents saw the message but stayed silent. My younger brother read it and didn't bother to answer. I lay there for hours staring at the screen, waiting for someone, anyone, to care, but the screen stayed blank. When I woke up groggy and sore after surgery, the nurse handed me my phone. Dozens of missed calls blinked across the screen, but none from family. They were from my neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, who said she found Noah wandering the hallway asking for milk. My kids had been left alone for nearly 2 days. She called the school, then called CPS, and finally my cousin Maya and her husband Daniel rushed over from out of town. They fed the kids, tucked them in, braided Lily's hair, packed lunches, and held everything together without asking for a thing. Meanwhile, Sophie was posting selfies at the winery with captions like, "Watch family time," and my mom was liking every single one. Not a word about my children, not a word about me. Weeks passed as I tried to heal, drugged with pain meds, while Maya and Daniel kept life stable for Noah and Lily. Then one morning I woke up to 68 missed calls from my mother and a Venmo request for $2,600. The note said only one word, urgent. No question if I was alive, no question about my kids, just money. That was the moment something inside me broke. For years I had carried them, paying Sophie's tuition, covering my brother's debts, bailing out my parents when their furnace broke, even paying down their mortgage once. I had done it without being asked because I believed family meant stepping up. But lying there staring at a screen filled with nothing but demands, I realized I was just a wallet to them. When my mother called again, I answered. She didn't ask about the surgery. She launched into a story about how my brother's car had broken down, how he couldn't get to school or work, and how I needed to send money. I said no, just that one word, no. She didn't take it well, said I was selfish, cold, that money had gone to my head. Rich words from a woman whose bills I had paid for years. She hung up. The next day, Sophie messaged me on Instagram, not to ask about me, but to see if I was still sending money for her boyfriend's birthday trip. I ignored her. She commented under one of my old posts, "Some people forget where they came from. Like I hadn't almost died weeks earlier." My dad sent a rambling text full of guilt and accusations, ending with a GoFundMe link for home repairs. I didn't answer him either. Maya was the only one who seemed to understand. She told me gently, "Maybe it's time they see life without you carrying them," and I knew she was right. Once I was finally home, I began unraveling every tie they had knotted around me. I pulled out of joint accounts, canceled the credit card Sophie used for endless shopping sprees, transferred the utilities back into my parents' names, stopped paying tuition, and shut every financial door they had once walked through freely. I did it quietly, without explanation. The fallout came fast. Sophie filled her social media with dramatic posts about betrayal, tears mixed with sponsored ads, begging for sympathy. My mom called relatives, painting me as unstable, telling them I had abandoned the family after a minor procedure. My dad spammed the chat with guilt-ridden essays, but this time none of it worked. I stayed silent, and without me holding it all together, their cracks showed fast. Sophie's boyfriend even came to my house demanding money, waving papers, threatening consequences. I told him if he didn't leave, I'd call the police. He smirked and walked away. But that night, my mom sent another Venmo request for over $1,000, this time labeled urgent medication. The manipulation was endless. Then the school counselor called me. She said Noah had drawn his family in class and left everyone out except me, Lily, and Maya and Daniel. Not his grandparents, not his aunt or uncle. When asked why, he said, "They weren't there when Mom was sick." The counselor also mentioned anonymous calls accusing me of neglect, traced back to a Florida number. My parents' Florida condo. That was it. That night I gathered every screenshot, voicemail, text, and receipt. I wrote it all out and posted it online, not with their names, but with every detail of what had happened. And it spread. People commented in shock. Relatives messaged me privately admitting they had been pressured or used by my family before. Sophie's ex reached out with proof that years ago she faked an appendix surgery to run a scam GoFundMe and spent the money on a vacation. My grandmother, usually silent, called me and said words I never thought I'd hear. "You didn't destroy the family, Claire. You stopped letting them destroy you." That was the first apology I ever got from someone in that generation. The ripple effect was immediate. Brands cut ties with Sophie. Old friends called out my mother publicly. Even the lawyer who once handled property paperwork contacted me to warn that my parents had tried to access an old shared account without my consent. I moved the funds into a trust for Noah and Lily and shut every door permanently. For the first time in years, I felt free. And as their access to me dried up, so did their interest. Sophie's sponsorships ended. My parents struggled to pay their bills. My brother vanished into silence. Meanwhile, my life grew peaceful. Maya and Daniel became family in every way that mattered. My grandmother joined us for dinners. Mrs. Alvarez checked in often. Noah began drawing me in his pictures again. Lily said our house finally felt safe. I blocked the toxic numbers, deleted the old photos, and built a circle only of those who had proven their love. Months later, a letter arrived with no return address, just the words, "We didn't know what we had until you were gone. We're sorry." I tucked it away without replying, because I didn't need their apology anymore. I had already taken back my power, and that, right there, was the real revenge. If you've ever felt betrayed by the very people you trusted most, you know how hard it is to stand your ground, but I promise you, silence and boundaries are louder than any screaming match could ever be. And if you believe stories like mine need to be heard, hit subscribe, because sometimes the only way to heal is to share the truth out loud.